You're watching the slow-motion beginning of something that doesn't happen often. Something that, the last time it did, crashed an entire asset class in a single day. And right now, one of the world's most powerful banks is caught in the middle of it, and they can't back out. Here's what's happening right now, today. JPMorgan Chase holds more physical silver than anyone else on Earth. More than 750 million ounces. That's not an opinion. That's documented. But here's the strange part over the last several years. They've been quietly doing something that looks exactly like what caused the biggest precious metals crisis in modern history. They've been accumulating real material while quietly dismantling their financial protection. And in 2020, the US government just fined them nearly $1 billion for the exact type of trading games that made this position possible in the first place. This is not coincidence. This is stage 3 of a 4-stage pattern that's played out dozens of times. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly where we are in that pattern, why it's different this time, and what you should actually do about it. Let me walk you through the pattern. 4 stages. They always happen in this order. Stage 1 is establishment. The system is built. Everyone trusts it. A market exists. Rules exist. Institutions participate. Everything feels normal, stable, and fair. Prices move up and down. People buy, people sell. It looks like a real market. It is a real market at first. But underneath, things are being set up that almost nobody sees yet. Stage 2 is manipulation. This is where the fragility gets built. Usually someone very smart, very connected, and very confident they won't get caught realizes that the system has a structural weakness. They can use leverage. They can place bets that are much larger than their actual capital. They can make paper claims that don't match physical reality. They do it because it's profitable. They do it because everyone else is doing something similar. They do it because the returns are spectacular. And they do it because, for a while, nobody's watching closely enough to notice. This stage can last years, sometimes decades. Meanwhile, the imbalance between paper claims and physical reality grows. Stage 3 is the squeeze. This is where you are right now. The system is stressed. Supply starts to look tighter than expected. Someone, a big buyer, a government, a competitor, or just reality itself starts calling the bluff. They ask for delivery. They ask for real material, not a contract, not a promise. The real thing. And here's what happens next. The number of paper claims floating around suddenly looks very different from the actual supply available. Cracks appear. Prices move violently. Rules start to get bent. Regulators start to move. Institutions start to scramble. Most people don't pay attention until this stage. By then, they're already too late. Stage 4 is the break. The system can't hold. Shutdowns happen, trading halts. Rules change mid-game. Contracts are settled in ways that violate the original deal. Official prices diverge wildly from what's real. Promises can't be kept. This is when ordinary people feel it most acutely. It's too late to prepare. It's too late to move. All that's left is damage control. You're in stage 3 right now. And I'm going to show you exactly why. But first, you need to understand why this particular system is different from most others. It's not just another market. It's not just another commodity. The material we're talking about is woven into the backbone of modern civilization. Think about what depends on it. Electronics, solar panels, batteries, medicine, industrial processes, aerospace, defense systems. Think about the countries that depend on importing it. Think about the industries that can't function without cheap and reliable access. Then think about this. Demand is growing. It's not flat. It's rising fast. But supply? Supply is not keeping up. Mines have limited capacity. They're becoming harder to find, harder to access, more expensive to extract. Some key producing regions are unstable or moving toward domestic control instead of export. The physical supply is tightening. Real, physical supply, not traded supply. Not contract supply. The actual material. You can't print this into existence. You can't just vote it into existence. You can't create it out of policy. Physics doesn't care about what the Federal Reserve wants to do. Chemistry doesn't care about what your government passes as law. And when demand exceeds supply, when there's more money chasing less actual material, the system breaks. Let me tell you the story of what happened the last time this exact pattern played out. Because it did, and it ended catastrophically. The Hunt brothers, William and Nelson, were among the richest men in America. They looked at the precious metals market and saw something most people missed. They saw manipulation. They saw prices being held artificially low. They saw an opportunity. They decided to corner the market, to dominate it so completely that they could essentially set the price. So they started not buying futures, not buying contracts, buying the actual material. Real ounces, accumulated in vaults. They bought thousands of tons, millions of ounces. They bought contracts too, stacked on top of their physical holdings. Leverage, amplification. They were confident. The market was distorted. They could fix it. And they could get very, very rich in the process. For a while it worked. The price started to move up, $20 an ounce. $30, $40, $48. By early 1980, they controlled so much of the market that they had to be watched. Regulators were paying attention, but nothing seemed to stop them. The price kept climbing. And then March 27, 1980, Silver Thursday. The price crashed 50% in a single day, not gradually, not over months. In one day, from the peak toward $15. Why? Because the rules changed, the exchanges changed the rules mid-game. You couldn't accumulate positions the same way anymore. The financing dried up. The hunts couldn't meet their margin calls. They didn't have the cash. Suddenly, they held millions of ounces of something nobody was buying, and they had massive obligations they couldn't pay. They declared bankruptcy. It was catastrophic. The lesson was simple. Leverage kills. Paper promises fail when reality hits. And the rules change when the system is threatened. That's one story. But here's what's important. It's not unique. Different decades. Different assets. Same playbook. In the 1990s, long-term capital management was a hedge fund run by brilliant mathematicians and Nobel Prize winners. They used leverage to bet on bond markets. They were convinced their models were perfect. They weren't. They blew up. Had to be rescued by the Federal Reserve. Because if they failed, the entire financial system would collapse with them. In 2008, banks held massive positions in mortgage-backed securities using extreme leverage. They were convinced housing prices could never fall. They were convinced their risk models were perfect. They weren't. The system nearly destroyed itself. Took a $700 billion government bailout just to prevent total collapse. The names change. The decades change. But the pattern stays the same. Someone builds a massive leveraged position in a system that looks stable until suddenly it isn't. So where are we right now? JPMorgan Chase, one of the most sophisticated financial institutions in the world, has spent the last several years accumulating the world's largest stockpile of the physical material we are discussing, over 750 million ounces. But at the same time, they liquidated their paper positions, their financial hedges. The contracts that insured them if the price moved the wrong way. They went from having substantial short positions, essentially betting prices would stay low, to being completely exposed to the upside. That's not the move a bank makes when they're comfortable with the status quo. A record penalty. Why? Because for nearly a decade, from 2008 to 2016, JPMorgan traders have been manipulating precious metals markets through spoofing. That's a technical term. Hundreds of thousands of fake orders. Traders in New York, London, Singapore. It was systemic. It was intentional. It was profitable. Then position yourself for what happens when the system can't sustain the fiction anymore. Industrial demand is accelerating. The math doesn't work anymore. There's more paper claiming ownership of this material than there is actual material to back it up. Disruptions first, delivery delays, tight supplies, premiums rising, then tightening, halts on certain types of trading, circuit breakers kicking in, rules changing. Empty signs at certain sellers. Delivery timeframes extended. Terms have changed. Those are bets on whether the price rises. But they're not the same as owning the actual material. If you're going to own any material at all, own it in the most direct, least complicated form possible. Not collectible pieces, not rare grades. Not products with complicated provenance. Simple, recognizable, liquid, easy to trade, easy to store, easy to verify. The kind of thing that has been recognized as valuable for thousands of years and will still be recognized as valuable when financial systems reorganize around new rules. Because they always do, and the material is never what loses value, the systems built on top of it are what changes. Third, act while access is still easy and premiums are still low. Right now you can acquire this material. It's available. The price premium above the official spot price is relatively modest. Access is straightforward. That changes once stress appears. Once people figure out what's happening, everyone moves at once. And once everyone moves at once, friction spikes. Prices spike. Availability vanishes. You don't want to be the person trying to acquire something when everyone else is trying to acquire it too. Fourth, don't make this an all-in max leverage gamble. That's how systems break. Allocate a reasonable portion of your portfolio. Enough that when this pattern completes, you're materially better off. Not so much that one adverse move destroys your financial life. Think in terms of insurance with asymmetric upside. You're not betting your life on this. You're recognizing a pattern and taking proportional steps to protect yourself and benefit from what comes next. Fifth, structure your access so that you're in control, not a fragile intermediary. If you buy through a bank or broker and they have a rule change or a failure, you're exposed. If you own the material in a form that doesn't require a third party to verify or execute it, you're much more resilient. This is the single most important step people skip. And that's the step that makes the difference between being protected and being left, holding a contract that can't be executed. Sixth, understand that this is not a short-term trade. You're not trying to sell this in 3 months for a 20% gain. You're positioning for structural change. You're recognizing that the system as it exists right now is becoming unsustainable. You're taking steps to own something that will be valuable regardless of what the system becomes next. That's a different mindset from trading. That's planning. That's building resilience into your own life. Zoom back out for a moment. This pattern we've been discussing, manipulation, leverage, fragility, then sudden reorganization, this is playing out in multiple systems simultaneously. The financial system is seeing it. The energy system is seeing it. Supply chains are seeing it. Geopolitical rivalries are being fought over access to these exact materials. Governments are starting to restrict exports. Strategic reserves are being built. The competition for control is increasing. It's not just one system breaking. It's multiple systems experiencing stress at the same time. History shows that when multiple systems stress simultaneously, the patterns accelerate. One small trigger can cascade. Confidence, once lost, is very hard to rebuild. Rules change fast. And ordinary people are usually the last to understand what has happening until it's already reorganizing around them. But here's the empowering part. You don't have to be the last. The pattern is visible if you know what you're looking at. The evidence is available. The history is documented. You can recognize stage 3. You can prepare for stage 4. You can take steps today that put you in the position of the people who understand, not the people who are shocked. So here's your choice. Crystal clear binary. You can recognize this pattern now. You can take the steps we've outlined. You can position yourself while the system is still functioning normally, while friction is still low, while you have options. When the break happens, and it will happen, you'll be on the other side of it. You'll have prepared. And preparation is what separates people who suffer from disruption versus people who actually benefit from it. Or you can ignore it. You can assume this time is different. You can assume the system will hold. And later, when the cracks appear, when the rules change, when access tightens, you can be the person who says, "How did this happen so fast? How did I not see it? Why didn't anyone warn me?" One of those people will be you. Right now, today, you get to choose which one. Subscribe. Because the next video breaks down the currency side of this exact same crisis. The debt side. Why governments and central banks are facing their own version of this same squeeze. And what it means for everything you hold, everything you earn, everything you plan. This pattern isn't random, it's not accident. It's physics. And physics always wins. See you in the next one.